just my story. Explain what it's felt like my whole life to be Lyle Menendez. There's just no way that anybody would say that I deserve to go to prison.
Lyle, that's a really good idea.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're breaking down the wildest, most compelling, most unbelievable moments of Lyle and Erik Menendez's infamous court proceedings.
How old were you when you started noticing that you were losing some hair?
Like 14.
The abuse excuse.
Well, I would just like to know if we're permitted, therefore, to tell whatever stories we know about other abused people, because I have a stack of mail 300 letters high that I'd be more than happy to read to the jury and tell them abuse stories.
Before any of the Menendez trials were underway, the matter of whether or not Lyle and Erik had taken their parents' lives was hardly up for debate. Rather, the pressure was on litigator Leslie Abramson to successfully dodge the death penalty.
Do you recall Erik's testimony that all he wanted from Andy was some understanding of whether what was going on was normal?
Yes.
Was he seeking Andy to turn his father in?
No.
Upon meeting with and speaking to the brothers across various interviews, it became clear that Abramson had the opportunity to draw attention to the wider pattern of abuse that both young men had described. A bold strategy even at the time. It was up to the defense to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that not only had the abuse taken place, but that it had become so unbearable as to do what the brothers had done.
They're the ones who understand this field, and they have no doubt that this aspect of her endangering her children was a serious component in why they were capable of believing that she would kill them.
Dr. Oziel's confession tapes.
In the early fall of 1988, did you begin seeing Erik and Lyle Menendez relating to incidents which occurred in Calabasas in which the defendants were involved?
Yes, I did.
After an attempt by local authorities to coax a confession out of Erik failed, the younger Menendez brothers' admission finally came from an unexpected source: his therapist, Dr. L. Jerome Oziel. The mental health professional recorded his sessions with Erik after he confessed to the murders. This move was predictably met with considerable levels of controversy.
Erik came in, and he was extremely agitated and extremely depressed, and he began talking with me.
Although the tapes were perceived as possibly violating doctor-patient confidentiality, an August 1992 ruling by the California Supreme Court eventually ruled them mostly admissible due to the heavy implication that Lyle and Erik had threatened Oziel. One major exception: the actual tape on which Erik had made his confession.
We did it. And I don't know if he said we killed our parents, but I asked him, you mean you killed your parents? He said yes.
The brothers' family testifies.
Do you recall a time when your cousin Erik was playing at your house where in the course of your time together he told you something you had not heard before?
Yes, I do.
The aforementioned abuse excuse was, of course, controversial. How could the brothers' defense team justify or even attempt to rationalize their heinous crime? While it's true that the truth in the Menendez's case is likely completely unknowable, Lyle and Erik benefited greatly from the testimony of two cousins, Andy Cano and Diane Vandermolen.
He asked me if my dad ever gave me massages.
And did you understand at that point what he meant?
No, I didn't.
Cano testified that Erik Menendez had confided in him about Jose Menendez's abuse when the two of them were children, complete with vivid and descriptive details. Perhaps even more damningly, Vandermolen's testimony revealed that Lyle Menendez had once revealed Jose's abuse to her, but when she had brought it up with Lyle's mother, Kitty, she was brushed off and shut down.
He proceeded to indicate to me by touching himself down and saying that his dad and him had been touching each other down there.
Erik Menendez's testimony.
He was over my shoulder, yelling at me in my ear, and I just said, all right, and he just, it's not something you're supposed to do, and he just grabbed me and slammed me into the glass.
Here's when things really started to get real. In his shocking testimony, Erik asserted that in the weeks leading up to the double murder, he had finally mustered up the courage to admit his father's abuse to his brother Lyle. After this, Lyle claims to have confronted Jose, who made what appeared to be a cryptic coded threat against his son's lives.
How did you interpret the things that your mother said to you in the den that Thursday night when you were on your way to the guest house?
That she knew about Dad and I.
And that she had known?
And that she said she had always known.
Erik Erik's testimony revealed that, per his account of the situation, this began a period of tension within the family, in which the brothers seemed to sincerely believe that their lives were in danger. After a series of increasingly intense encounters, the brothers made the choice to kill their parents. They viewed it as self-defense.
Were you happy about what you had done?
No, it was beginning to hit me what I had done when I went back to the house that night, and I couldn't accept that.
My question was, were you happy about it?
No, I was not happy.
Judalon Smyth takes the stand.
Ms. Smyth, would it be fair to say that when you went to the police on March the 5th of 1990, your primary motivation is that you wanted Dr. Oziel prosecuted?
Correct. He was the one who committed crimes against me, not Lyle or Erik Menendez.
It's only fitting that the person who first went to the authorities about Oziel's confession tapes provided some of the trial's most memorable moments. Smyth was the therapist's mistress, who, when told by Oziel that he wouldn't leave his wife for her, promptly informed the police about the tape's existence.
I was interested in proving that I was telling the truth, that Dr. Oziel was a liar, and that I had been terribly victimized and had real criminal charges, criminal acts committed against me.
In a turn of events that few would have predicted, Smyth became a witness for the defense, revealing that Oziel had attempted to extort the Menendez brothers for weekly payments in exchange for keeping their secret. While even the presiding judge eventually tired of the sordid details of Oziel and Smyth's affair, Smyth's statement that she, quote, would not want children that looked like Dr. Oziel was a notable highlight.
My being upset is not because they wouldn't file those charges. My being upset is because all the behind-the-scene things around that.
Lyle's testimony.
Would he seem to be directed at taking photos of your faces?
No.
What would he...
He would take photographs of your genital area and the lower half of your body.
It almost feels wrong to call Lyle Menendez's time on the witness stand a showstopper, but it's hard to describe it any other way. Lyle's dramatic testimony lent significant credence to Abramson's abuse excuse defense. While Erik's earlier testimony had certainly done its part to move the jury, Lyle's was interpreted as being, at least for a moment, a significant boon to the Menendez brothers.
We would have these talks, and he would show me, and he would fondle me, and he would ask me to do the same with him, and I would touch him, and we would undress.
The elder brother's graphic, harrowing account of the abuse he alleged his father had committed, particularly its first hour, was largely responsible for the case's first mistrial. As Robert Rand described in his book, The Menendez Murders, quote, in the courtroom, the family members were crying, jurors were emotional, some reporters were becoming emotional.
I just told him that I didn't want to do this, and that it hurt me.
Lyle Menendez's hairpiece.
How old were you when you started noticing that you were losing some hair?
I think 14.
While Lyle's testimony was obviously powerful in itself, it yielded one of the most shocking and notable moments of the entire trial. Not only did Lyle regularly wear a hairpiece, but it had been used as a prop by his mother as a means of humiliating him.
Your whole head?
Just the area where the hairpiece went on.
And what area is that?
Essentially just around the crown area and all the way back.
As Lyle recounted in his testimony, an argument between himself and his mother had resulted in her ripping the toupee off with her bare hands. Given the powerful chemical solvent needed to attach the hair system to Lyle's head, it goes without saying that this would have been extremely painful for him.
You are the hypocrite, huh? What about this?
Oh.
A mistrial is declared.
The court finds, based upon the statement of the foreman and all of the jurors, that there is no reasonable probability that a verdict can be reached in this matter as to any count.
Following the unexpected success of Leslie Abramson's abuse excuse and Lyle Menendez's obviously moving testimony, a case previously thought to be a cut-and-dry double homicide was flipped on its head. That is to say, each of the brothers' respective trials ended with deadlocked juries, who could not come to an agreement as to whether or not the extent of the brothers' alleged abuse was justification for their actions.
And therefore, the court finds that the jury is hopelessly deadlocked and declares a mistrial in this matter.
LA County District Attorney Gil Garcetti immediately declared that another trial would take place with an all-new jury. Unlike the highly publicized first trial, Judge Stanley Weisberg forbade media presence in the courtroom this time around.
And the jurors will be discharged from further service in this case.
Lyle's private diary becomes a problem.
It's just my story. Explain what it's felt like my whole life to be Lyle Menendez. There's just no way that anybody would say that I deserve to go to prison.
Lyle, that's a really good idea.
One of the first trials to be broadcast on television, the Menendez case famously deteriorated into a media circus. However, not every aspect of this was harmful or embarrassing to the brothers. They soon found that they had fans who write and call them and even give them money.
Hi, Lyle. I'm just writing to say I believe you. You couldn't have done the things they say you did. Or if you did, you certainly had a good reason.
One such quote-unquote fan was Norma Novelli, who struck up a phone correspondence with Lyle under the guise of helping him write a book. Unfortunately for Lyle, the contents of the book made him look cold, callous, calculating, and above all, disingenuous. As a result, Lyle was barred from testifying at the brothers' second trial.
Do you know what this means?
No.
It means that you can be cross-examined about everything that you said if you testify.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. The Menendez brothers are convicted.
Tonight, the verdict, Lyle and Erik Menendez guilty. A live report from our Brian Jenkins. We'll also have reaction tonight from across the Southland. That story from our Sasha Fu.
Despite the mountain-moving efforts of the brothers' legal defense, the jury at their second trial was unconvinced by their accounts of how their father had treated them. This partially owed to Judge Weisberg's ruling that Lyle and Erik's abuse claims would be restricted.
12 jurors convicted them of first-degree murder for the 1989 shotgun slayings of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. That same jury will now decide whether the brothers should die for their crimes.
Ultimately, they were convicted to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Explaining their decision, this trial's jurors had spared the Menendezes the death penalty on account of the fact that they had had no previous criminal record. Crucially, they stated their belief that the murders had been committed for financial gain and not out of self-defense. After their 1996 sentencing, Lyle and Erik Menendez would not meet in person again until 2018.
It was the strangest thing. It was total silence in the courtroom.
Well, as soon as the jury walked in, there was no eye contact made with either of the brothers, so it was pretty obvious to me as a lawyer that it was going to be a guilty verdict.
Which Menendez brothers trial moment shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below.
Whenever I felt, I don't know, I took him out sometimes, and I took a toothbrush also, and I played with Erik in the same way.